Today, I want to share with all of you the 4 type of rental property you can actually buy. A lot of you guys know I've been in this real estate game now for over 30 years. And what I'm about to share with you is something I have experienced myself. I've gone through and owned pretty much real estate in all 4 of these quadrants. Each one of these quadrants, you can own real estate in it. But I also noticed that there's one quadrant that you can have the best of both worlds. If you're gonna own real estate, you really gotta really think about what type of property you should buy, where you should buy it at. Because 30 years from when you look back, you wanna make sure that you actually bought the property in the right location, the right type of property, so you actually maximize your investment the most as possible. I wish someone told me this when I actually started investing in real estate. So I am now owning real estate in all 4 of these quadrants. And I realized as I went 10 year, 20 year into the game, I realized, wow, I shouldn't even bother owning property in this quadrant. I should move them into other quadrants. Let's jump in. Let me share with you the 4 quadrant. I'm going to show you this. This is basically what I drew out. Just imagine there's 4 quadrant, okay? And I'm going to share with you the first quadrant. The first quadrant, I'll realize it is a quadrant I call appreciation, but no cash flow. This quadrant is a quadrant where it is in an area, the price point is actually very high. So for example, in Seattle, Bellevue, Mercer Island is an example. In California, Newport Beach is an example, right? New York City is an example. Those are areas and city where those property, they go up in value a lot. Imagine owning a piece of property in New York City or Newport Beach. Those things are worth a lot of money year after year after year. But to get in them, it's very expensive. And the problem with those high-end property, you have to put down 40, 45, 50% plus just to actually have it breaking even sometime, not even cash flow. I realized I've owned a bunch of property in those areas where I have a lot of equity in them. I paid a lot for them. They done well for me, but they just don't get the most cash flow out of them. I chose to basically eventually sold those, took the cash and 1031 and buy them in better area where I can actually have better, return on my money. So the first quadrant, I call it appreciation and no cash flow. And that's the reason why, one of the reasons why I'm not very interested on actually buying rental property in Newport Beach, where I love to go. And even if I use it for full-time rental, it's going to be hard to have even cash flow without me putting so much money down. So again, quadrant 1, appreciation and no cash flow. The next quadrant is no appreciation, but cash flow. These are area what I call, there's certain part of Seattle that there is not much appreciation, but the price point is low enough where you actually can cash flow. I own property in those areas. I'll give you an example. I have bought a property in, this certain area of Seattle, and I paid, I want to say 20 years ago, like $135,000. 20 years later, I decided to 1031 and take the money and roll to something different. Well, 20 years later, I sold this property, I think for only less than $300,000. It only doubled once. There's certain area in Seattle, it doubled basically every 7-8 years. So in 10-20 years, it can double 2 times in Seattle. And so I realized, geez, that ain't good. I know this area like Milwaukee. I know a lot of people go down to Milwaukee and they buy down there because they love the cash flow, but it doesn't appreciate much. And a lot of people, they don't mind that because they want the cash flow. But I want to say to everybody, eventually you will want to sell these property one day. The thing that disappointed me is after 20 years owning some of these property, it didn't do that well in appreciation because, again, it didn't go up in value. So sometimes you want it to go up in value so you can actually have a lot of equity so you can roll it to do something better with this property. So that's a negative of these areas where you might cash flow, but it don't appreciate well, and you can't 1031 and take a big chunk of cash and go do something better. And that's why, again, this quadrant, I'm not a big fan of it anymore either. The next quadrant, no appreciation and no cash flow. This is the area you want to stay away from, people. It's enticing for people to go down these areas. Like, for example, there's a certain part of Detroit where you can buy a whole house for 50 grand. I mean, damn. The problem with this is that it's in an area that's very, very, very tough. Nobody want to go in these areas and actually buy. So when there's not a lot of buyer, a lot of renter, you're not going to get a lot of appreciation. And the renter down in some of these areas, they don't pay much. So you don't get a lot of appreciation, and you definitely don't get a lot of cash flow. There is some part of Seattle, they have this area. And I definitely stay away from that. And now, I've been in those areas because I used to own property in those areas. And I tell you, you don't make any cash flow. The property, you know what I mean, end up getting war and tear much faster. You got to put money into always fixing it up. And the worst part of it, you barely make any cash flow. And the property, you got to spend money on it all the time, right? When people move in and out. But then the worst part of it, when you get ready to sell it, it didn't even go up in value. It's like, Jesus, Lord, all this property, why am I even owning real estate? I barely make any cash flow. The property gets beat up more often than normal, and I don't get a lot of appreciation. This, you guys, is a quadrant you definitely want to stay away. Don't get sold or don't get inspired when you hear people go, oh, I can buy a house for 50 grand in this area. Folks, it comes along with a lot of headache, and you barely make any money. I don't even consider owning real estate in those areas as an investment. No cash flow and no appreciation. Stay away from that area. And then the last quadrant is my favorite quadrant today because I gone through all 4 quadrants and I realized this is the best quadrant. This quadrant is appreciation and cash flow. This area, the price point is not the super high end. It is not the low end. It's right in the middle, okay? It's right there in the middle. This area, right, in Seattle, this is where I pretty much focus all my energy in Seattle. In Dallas and Austin, there's a lot of area like this. Tampa, Florida, that is an area where there's live. In Southern California, I'm going to tell you, this area, Long Beach. This area, Orange, Fullerton. These are area that is not the Beverly Hills. It's not the Newport Beach. It's the everyday in that little sweet spot right here. This area is where the city want to make it more affordable. So they're allowing ADUs. They're allowing detached ADU. This is an area where the cities are a little bit more bigger. They actually are creating density. They want more affordable housing. And this is where the price point, again, is more the median price point. But the most important thing, this is where the burr lies and live. When you know how to find these type of deal in this appreciating area and a cash flow area, and you find ugly houses, off market especially, and you know how to find these properties in those areas, and you can buy, rehab it, and add value and force value, this is where the rent are relatively on the higher side. The ARV is still on the higher side, but you can still find property, a fixer at a reasonable price where you can add value. You can create 20, 25, 30% equity. This is where the burr lies. The burr don't lie in appreciation and no cash flow. The burr don't lie in no appreciation and yes cash flow. The burr definitely don't lie in no appreciation and no cash flow. It lies in the balance of appreciation and cash flow. This is the magic when you know where to find these type of property and where to live. And after 30 years of doing real estate investing, I realized those 4 quadrants is the appreciating cash flow, but you got to know what to find in those areas to make it work. And this is where I teach all my students Springboard, find ugly houses in this quadrant. Some people say, God, it's so expensive. No, the ARV is expensive. Yes, but relatively not Beverly Hills expensive. Okay. It's $800,000 in Seattle. It might be $350,000, $400,000 in Tampa. It might be $300,000, $350,000, $400,000 in Austin. It's the everyday area. But this is where you can find ugly houses in Seattle for $500,000, $600,000, where you can rehab it, put ADU. This is where all the money live. So you might have to come up with a little bit of a down payment to find the ugly house in this area. But this is the area where you get good cash flow and killing it in appreciation. And I'm going to tell you again, cash flow is great. Don't get me wrong. I want cash flow, but I also want appreciation. I want my cake and eat it too in real estate investing. I want to be able to own real estate and cash flow. And in Seattle, where I invest my money in this area, every 7 to 8, 9 years, it doubles in value. So if an ARV worth 800, in 7, 8 years, it'd be worth 1.6. 7, 8 years again, 3.2. You can't save your money fast enough, folks, in the area that has good appreciation. Get the cash flow, but also get the appreciation. This is why I love this quadrant. If you guys like the video and what I said today, like the video for me. Comment below what you guys learned from this, what you guys realized. And also make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. And make sure you turn on the notification bell so when we drop the next video, you guys first to know, okay? Have an awesome day. Peace.